Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and for most of us, taking off the uniform means stepping into a void where rank, title, and mission used to be. For Ken Webb, it meant walking away from 33 years of Army service, then closing the chapter on a second career at American Airlines, and finally landing in a place where nobody cared who he had been. In Miraflores, Peru, Ken found himself stripped of all those old definitions. Just a guy with some hard-earned scars and a real hunger to start over. Ken's not chasing titles anymore. He's writing his first crime novel. He's actually publishing his first crime novel, grinding away at his Spanish and earning a doctorate, not because anyone told him to, but because there's still something in the tank and he refuses to coast. This one's for you if you've ever wondered who you really are when the old answers no longer fit. So let's get into it. Ken, brother, welcome to the show, man.
All right, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. Dude, first question for everybody. Where did you grow up and what inspired you to join the Army?
Okay, I grew up in Collingdale, Pennsylvania. I have run across some people have heard of it, but most have not. It's close to South Philadelphia. You can take a trolley right into South Philadelphia. It's a low income location. I had a somewhat of a difficult childhood. Single parent home, but lived with my grandparents, and that they gave me stability for a lot of my life with my grandparents. Sometimes with my mother and she had 5 husbands, so her different husbands. But I was always interested in the military. I was never an athlete. I played sports just to try to fit in with other kids, and I wasn't very good at them. But I always thinking, well, I'd like to be in the military. I never really thought Air Force. And I never really thought Marine Corps. I was thinking Army or Navy just because they're the big ones, and I thought they'd have the most opportunity. Graduated high school. I tried hard, but I was an average student, not popular, anything like that. And I was at a junior college, Tarrant County Junior College, and I'd moved at that point from Collingdale, Pennsylvania, down to live with my mother, where she was at that time, and not Collingdale, Pennsylvania, but Colleyville, which was a much higher income. She moved there. She was an airline employee, and she just worked as a ticket agent and previously as a gate agent. But she had excellent skills for picking out a house because it was she purchased the house for a low amount of money, and then a bunch of pilots, doctors, dentists, lawyers moved in, raised the value of the land. And the high school I went to had a lot of kids that did have some money. And when I was at the junior college, I ran into someone, his name was Wayne Woodgate, had on a uniform. At that time, it was like the Army BDUs, rich uniforms, and which I preferred to the blue things that came.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't remember all those acronyms. I don't want to, but I said, what's going on? Because, most people don't wear, some people would wear like fatigues and stuff, but he had like the belt on. I didn't see a hat, but he had on the T-shirt, the brown T-shirt. He had on the boots and the black boots, that you shine. And
Oh, yeah.
he was in the ROTC department. So I got to talking to him, and I went and talked to some people, and I went that summer. I guess it was the following summer, because I think I talked to him in the summertime or fall, and went to basic training, got an ROTC scholarship, and because I was looking for a way to pay for school, I went to the University of Texas in Arlington, satellite school, not the big UT school, and I have a pretty good ROTC program. There's actually there was, I can't remember his name now, I'm embarrassed, but there was a famous person who did graduate from there as far as ROTC. Now, Lou Diamond Phillips graduated from there. People know him, but I'm talking about an Army person. I was commissioned in 1992, May the 15th, 1992, and that was at the height of the cutbacks. That was when George Bush Sr., cut back after the Desert Storm, which I was not in Desert Storm. I'm old enough to have been in it, but I was in college at the time and in the ROTC department. And so I did the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer thing, the weekend warrior. Sometimes you'd get 2-week things in the summer. Yeah. But then in 2001, I had the opportunity to mobilize for the first time. And previous to that, the longest bit I've been on active duty was the officer basic course in Anniston, Alabama. I commissioned as a military police officer.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I wanted military intelligence, but I didn't get it.
So it was by default you end up at
Well,
MP.
you had to select at that time. You had to do a dream sheet, and you had to pick a combat arms. And my combat arms I selected was armor tanks, but I didn't get it, and I didn't want that. But I had to pick one, and I had military intelligence. My second choice was military police. I got military police, and I wound up liking the military police corps, and I was in it for 14 years, and in 2001, I had the opportunity to mobilize, and I went to Kosovo, Camp Bondsteel, and it was the force protection officer position. And we would do, vulnerability assessments on the various, bases outside, try to improve things there. And I was there on 9/11. I was in Pristina, Kosovo, at a force protection meeting. A British officer came over. I was a captain, and he said, "Excuse me, they've just flown a plane into." And I said, "Excuse me," and it was. And then I saw that. I didn't see that, but the second plane I watched on television, because there it was 1500. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was not 9 in the morning.
Right.
And so rushed back to the base. They said force protection condition Delta, but at Delta you don't move, and we were moving. So it was Charlie with some Delta measures implemented. And you may remember at that time the purse strings opened up, and they started bringing in reservists, on all kinds of tours. And in the civilian world, I'd had various jobs. I taught school for a while, worked in business for a while, and I was working at American Airlines. Was not a pilot. Started out in reservations. Worked in operations there, and I was allowed to mobilize many times, and went, did vulnerability assessments down on the border of Mexico, Joint Task Force 6. Now it's Joint Task Force South.
Okay.
And then I went over, believe it or not, I was already interested in being military intelligence again. And so I was going through the process of getting a top secret clearance. I understand all officers have top secret clearance now, but it didn't used to be that way.
Do they?
And so I had the opportunity to do a tour over at the Joint Analysis Center in JAC Molesworth, England. The British don't like the term intelligence being used, so they say analysis. The other places are JICs. There's a JIC in Florida. There's JICs other places. Every place else is a JIC. This one is Joint Analysis Center. And it's a U.S. base on British soil that they allow us to have there. And I went over there, and then I did my time there, bought a round-the-world ticket, was traveling all around the world. Oh, I guess I was traveling about 25 days. I planned on traveling for 6 months, but I was scuba diving. I'm a big scuba diver in Phuket, Thailand. And if you're a scuba diver, you know that when you go diving and you're exposed to those depths,
right.
You can't get in a plane.
No.
Well, you have to wait 24 hours. I'm a big scuba diver. I have over 550 dives. I do know this. And so I was waiting on an email, and at that time, not everybody had cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone, but when I checked my email, it was, email from my stepfather, your unit's been mobilized. And then I called the unit, and they said, you have to come back. And I said, well, I have to wait 24 hours to fly. And then I went back. I wound up going to OIF-1 in Iraq. I went down to Fort Hood, Texas with their Army Reserve unit, the 309th. No, excuse me, not the 309th, 607th Military Police Battalion. And I went over there as a battle captain. And I got over there. I was with the advanced party, not the torch party, but I guess it was a torch party. It was like 3 of us. So yeah, it was a torch party. I got over there just at the very end of February of 2003 and returned. It was like March the 1st. So I was just over a year boots on the ground, March the 1st or 2nd of 2004. Nice. And at that time I was, conventional forces, but I was very scared because, that was when that conflict in Iraq first started, and they told us that Saddam had a chemical weapon.
Chemical weapon. You guys were in MOP 4, weren't you?
We were. I was just about to say that, and there was desensitization. We were desensitized because we got in it so much.
Yeah.
And I remember using the F word and everything else because I'd be in the dining facility, and I remember they could say, lightning, lightning.
Of
Light
course.
night, and the doors would close, and it would be scary because you would think that there really was going to be an attack. Scud missile vicinity. We'd have on our grease pencils and everything else. But when the doors would close, sometimes people would be outside and be like, let me in," and we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So, but that it didn't happen. But you can imagine being in Mop 4. Well, it gets hot in Mop 4.
It's already hot in the desert over there.
And,
So, yeah.
and you smell, well, I mean, over in February, March, it wasn't as bad as the dead of summer, but it was definitely uncomfortable. And then a big issue was when we, did start to go north, and we were at Camp Udari Range, because we went from Camp Arifjan to Udari, and limits on water. And, there were some, and I want to be politically correct, but I was told it was females, and we were told, you could only shower every other day. And there were some that, I want to say all, but wanted to shower every day. And what happened is we ran out of water. So there was a time when I was taking a bath with just a water bottle. And then what some people may not realize is it was hot water. We didn't have refrigeration.
Yep.
So you can imagine trying to drink water that actually burns when you're drinking it, and you're trying to figure out a way to make it cold.
This is bringing up reminders, man. Because my first deployment was OF3. So I got to my first duty station about a month after they came home from the invasion. So 3rd ID led the charge into the airport. I was a 3rd ID guy. And on my first deployment, I know exactly what you're talking about. We were limited on water. We were eating MREs for months. And we would let our water bottles sit outside in the sun and then poke holes in the top of them to take showers. That's how we would take showers. So I remember all of that, man. I remember all of that.
And you remember probably losing a lot of weight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember, just sweating so much, not having access to laundry. So your uniforms by the end of the month, because you're rotating uniforms a month, they just stand on their own. Salt rings from your gear. I
remember the salt rings, and we had people that would build makeshift showers outside, and I wouldn't bother taking a towel.
Yeah, no reason.
By the time I walked back, I was dry.
Yeah.
It was dry. I might have begun sweating by the time I walked back. But then I worked at night a lot as a battle captain, and I remember rolling myself up in a sleeping bag to avoid the sleep maniasis, during the day. But there was no air conditioning in the tent. And it might not sound like much, but that's no small matter in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And we had tents that were made in Kuwait. It was interesting. Well, eventually we did get, climate control, but I remember it. Unfortunately, I gained the weight back, but I lost a lot of weight just because I had to lose it, because I hate MREs. I can remember eating peanut butter and crackers for a long time. Like,
man, I love MREs. I miss those.
I don't miss that. You can have that. So, and I got to have a company command there, and it started there. Then I came back doing the weekend warrior thing for about 2 years, and then I transferred to a unit. I was in Grand Prairie, Texas at the time, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth area, doing reserve stuff, and then went down to a unit that was in Austin, San Antonio, and Round Rock, and I was put in a position as a S3 down there as operations officer, and I was branch transferred. And I went to Fort Huachuca. Once again, being a tour baby, basically unemployed reserve bum. Yeah. And you said you were active duty. Perhaps you saw some of my compatriots. Maybe you even saw me. But we were, for a while, making out better financially than the active duty, because what was going on is we would be getting paid TDY. And that went on for at least a year. I did that for a year at Fort Huachuca. Then it was reduced to 75%, and then 50%. And then the Army finally, it called up to the other branches, and it was just like, no, you don't need all that if you're going to be stabilized here.
Right.
But I didn't make that rule. I benefited from it, but I made it. I was at Fort Huachuca 33 months. And then that same unit got mobilized to go to Afghanistan. I went over there as the S3. the 309th MI Battalion. That's why I said 309th before. I was getting confused uh, with the 607th Military Police Battalion. So I went over to Afghanistan, and it was a much different experience than Iraq. That's where I
Yes.
got my combat action badge over there. And at no point, I mean, I was there during an attack, and I almost got blown up. So that's not heroic, but I got a cab out of that.
Right.
But it was during, I remember it was Valentine's Day, and it had rained the whole day the previous day.
Oof.
And a Russian rocket, I used to know the number, but I can't remember it now, so I'm not going to say it because I'm afraid I'll get it wrong. But apparently what happened is it rained the whole day, and that's what saved my life. And it went all the way down into the ground, like 20 feet or something, and didn't have, like, it detonated, but didn't have a full detonation or something. And I remember it did knock me down. I was starting to get up for a Valentine's Day run, 5K run, and I was cursing and falling down. And some people, it's kind of funny, some people around that were also in those quarters, those wooden quarters, were like, oh, that's Major Webb, just having a bad day cursing. Well, it knocked me down. And some of those people got a cab too because they were close enough to it. I was only about, like, I guess 9 feet, but I was separated by a wooden wall.
Right.
I was told it would have blown me up if it had detonated. And certainly there were people that died from that. The Scud attacks in Iraq were not very accurate at all.
Right.
And these rockets weren't particularly accurate either. But
When I remember the same thing that you do, it's a completely different fight between Iraq and Afghanistan. I did 3 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was 2012 for me. And so by then the fighting was completely evolved. And yeah, completely different fight. In Afghanistan, they were way more organized. They were more accurate.
Fierce fighters, braver fighters, tougher fighters.
Yep. Yeah, and actually, like, kind of trained, right? Like, had weapons caches, had medical checkpoints to go take care of themselves because they knew obviously that we were going to fight back, and
they were true believers, right? I mean, in Iraq, when I was there, we were fighting against the army, and then when I started leaving, when you were there.
It was all foreign fighters when I was there.
I was just about to say that the terrorists went there to fight us.
Yeah.
They went there before, and you were probably fighting people from the Philippines, Abu Sayyaf.
Everywhere. And our biggest threat wasn't really, the soldier fight or the man fight. It was vehicle-borne IEDs for a big part of it. And I was there for the evolution of the EFPs, from the evolution of command det to pressure plates to, it was just a nightmare of a fight for sure.
Okay. And I was going to say IEDs were just starting to happen when I was leaving.
Yeah.
So it was very scary because we thought he had chemicals. That part of it was high stress. But as far as real danger, that happened after I was there. Now, I was in Afghanistan. That was Iraq. In Afghanistan, I went there in October 2009, left in August 2010. And I mean, they were shooting and they were shooting, like, accurately.
Yeah.
And stuff. And it wasn't running away. They were fighting. If they were running away, it was to reorganize and shoot at us from somewhere else.
Yeah.
They weren't running away to just run. They were going to get a better shot or something.
Yeah.
Much fiercer, much rougher people. And then as I read about it, because I read some books before I went over there. Let's see, the bear went over the mountain, the other side of the mountain, written by people from the USSR that went over there, saying how tough these people were. And, one of the linguists had told some stories over there that, the Russian soldiers were lied to when they first went there. And he told me they were going to go there and go fight Chinese or something. I don't know if you've heard anything like that, but they were apparently lied to. But anyway, the base we're at, which was Bagram, was a former Russian base. If you've ever been there on Bagram, you can still see the Russian writing and stuff like that. And apparently there's unexploded ordnance outside of the fence.
I'm sure there is.
And if you were there, and now it's interesting. They would always light up Bagram There are a lot of lights on, which to me would indicate they could get more accurate fire on there. But
You would, yeah, right. Not a brilliant idea there.
and it was not a no hat, no salute area either.
No, of
Which
course
I
not. Well,
which
calf wasn't either, and it got stupid. Like, I remember I was in Panjwai, so way out in the Horn, birthplace of the Taliban, and we would have to go to calf to do supply runs or whatever. And I just remember getting on calf and just they're pulling people over for fucking speeding tickets, man. Like we're fighting a fucking war out here, and you guys are the MPs. I say this, jokingly because you were an MP. They're giving tickets for not wearing PT belts. I'm getting chastised not wanting to let me in the chow hall because I got a faded, dirty uniform. It's like this is the cleanest uniform I have. Like just seeing those bigger bases and the atrocity, the monstrosity, like people don't even know that there's a war going on.
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, and after the fact, we complain about some stuff. I remember I was struck, and it didn't strike me in Iraq, but it struck me in Afghanistan, the waste that was going on over there.
Oh
The
yeah.
amount of food that we were throwing out, and
Mind you, I can't get food out at the COP that I'm at, right?
yeah,
We're still stuck on MREs and disgusting MKT food. If we had supply runs that would bring, man, yeah, I remember all this shit.
you remember all this. Well, and then I go through depression. I remember talking to people. In the moment you're hyped up, I was very much in favor of the war in Iraq, and I was going, yeah, I'm going to Afghanistan, and I will say Afghanistan made more sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certainly no expert strategist or anything, but I find myself now wondering what I was doing in Iraq
Yes.
and why we didn't go into Afghanistan full force. Get Osama bin Laden.
Yep.
And if not in Afghanistan, why didn't we work with the Pakistanis, put them
Yeah.
under pressure, and just go kill them? And maybe it wouldn't have been fight for conventional forces. I'm picturing like a large contingent of special forces, doing a halo jump in and just killing them
Yeah.
in the
Yeah, for
beginning.
sure.
Now, that could be an oversimplification. He was probably very hard to find.
Who knows, man? We'll never know. We'll never know what the
There's things, or
politicians were
maybe
doing.
not even military, maybe a CIA thing, and nobody's like, well, he's dead. We don't know what happened. Nope.
Right.
He just
So
died.
can you did 33 years as a
Right.
reservist, correct?
I did 33, and then with the mobilizations, it came up to just under 18. And
Okay.
it is stressful. And I will tell you, I retired as a lieutenant colonel from the Army Reserves, working in reservations and then operations at American Airlines. The two were not equal. And
No.
my civilian career never got a chance to catch up to my military career because which one am I more proud of? It's the military. And I was stuck into a niche in that. And I was enjoying jumping tour to tour. Now, it was a terrible thing, 9/11. I mean, if I could take that away, I certainly would. But I guess you'd say benefited from it as far as
Right.
accumulating money, accumulating travel. I went all over the world. I was in England. I was in Germany, Kaiserslautern, Stuttgart, Germany, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which a little known fact is excellent for scuba diving. Did a lot of dives there. Uh, because I was on active duty, I had a scholarship for my bachelor's degree, used tuition assistance for my master's degree. Still have 34 months left on the GI Bill, and I'm going to go for my doctorate on that. But yeah, about 18 years. The last active duty time was at the embassy, United States Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, and the my senior raider, the general I worked for, who was because there it's joint. He was Air Force pilot, John Tykert, and he was actually just on the news recently. You may have seen him
I
about
know that name.
the
Yeah, the name
Secretary of
sounds
Defense.
familiar.
The Secretary of Defense, the real gung ho guy that's like these generals, they need to work out with them. Well,
Yeah.
he got on there, and he's very athletic, and he's certainly not against it. But he's like, we don't want to focus too much on the physical. We want people that can think, people that are moral, people. We want technical and tactical expertise. And yeah, he's been on there. He ran for the Senate too, and he dropped out of the race. He was a
Yeah.
1 star. He was a test pilot for the F-35. He was in charge of the air wing at Edwards Air Force Base, California, and
Hmm.
he made 2 star, but he didn't accept it. He retired. He's younger than me. He's He actually honored me by giving me a little bit of his time to talk to me about being an author, because he's an author also. He's wrote his first fiction novel, and it's about his code. His call sign is dragon, and so he wrote a book for children about a dragon that couldn't fly, and so it joined the United States Air Force, and that's how it got to fly.
That's so cool. So when you were getting out, being that you kind of had a parallel career with American while you're a reservist, even though
Yeah.
you did a bunch of mobilization that gets you to 18 years, I started this show because I identified, the challenge is in all the shit that they tell us at TAP when we're getting out. Use your GI Bill, go get the degree. You're a veteran. Everybody wants to hire you. You'll make six figures. Congratulations. That's what success looks like. That's absolutely not the case. That's actually like priming, and they're lying to us and all of that. So the point of this show is to do what we've done, give background on what your career looked like, and then really highlight the struggles that you went through in your own transition. And it doesn't matter, guard, reserves, active duty guys, there's always some kind of struggle in transitioning from a military life back to a civilian life. And I don't care if you guys are guard and reservists and you've been working this career, there's still the same loss of identity, the same loss of purpose, the same struggles that the active duty folks go through as well. So paint a picture of what transition looked like for you. How did you manage, and we're really leading up to like what you're doing now, where you're at in the world. Cause I think, you've got it right. You're living for yourself, and it's pretty amazing to see. And that's kind of my message, man, is I don't want people to get pigeonholed into the noise of getting out of the military, and you've got TAP and your friends and family and your spouse and your kids all throwing different ideas at what your life should look like, but nobody ever stops to tell us like, hey, you get a choice in what
Mm-hmm.
your life should look like. You get to sit in front of the mirror and find out what resonates with you and what you want to do. So walk us through what your transition looked like and how you get through, decide to retire from American Airlines, to pack it all up, go to Miraflores, Peru, and start learning Spanish and writing novels. How did you get there?
Okay. Well, this is really, there's some great things here, and I'm glad you brought up some things that I want to touch on, because it's really very interesting. Now, first of all, as far as Spanish, I took it in high school in the U.S. and I took it in college. I was like one or two classes short of a minor in it, so I could do basic things with it, but I didn't study it for over 30 years, and so I retired twice from the Army. So I was in charge of, administratively, kind of like a HHC commander in charge of a facility in Kuwait, at Camp Arifjan, that did some intelligence stuff with various agencies. And COVID happened I started hearing about it maybe November, but I think December for sure. Maybe November, we started hearing things, and I thought, as well as other people thought, oh, well, that's going to go away. I mean, I had people a lot smarter than me saying, well, this thing will die by August. Everybody will say it's a big hoax. And so my retirement date was in June the 1st of 2020. So people were having trouble leaving theater. And I remember there was a major general, two-star general, and he was the deputy out there. And in one of the meetings, my NCOIC, who went to that meeting, I was not able to, had said, hey, that lieutenant colonel that's retiring, we need to make sure we get him out of here. So when other people had trouble getting out, I got out. I never purchased a house. I didn't own a house until I inherited my mother's house. So I didn't, when I came back from these tours, I would, stay with my mother, then get an apartment. And because she was having issues with my stepfather, who was getting the early signs of dementia. So I would help her, and she was older. And so because she's older, and, you have to quarantine with COVID, remember that. I went down to one of my best friend's places, again in Texas, Harlingen, Texas, down on the border, close to Padre Island. A nice area, low income, very affordable. And so I was down there, and I helped him around his house. I bought him food, quarantined correctly. We did all the correct things. And then I retired. I was depressed June the 1st. Okay. And I went through severe depression. I was like, I've lost my identity, everything else. Well, it's 3 days later, I get an email, which was followed up by mail. But first, you get the email because it was quicker. It was with COVID, and this is what happened. COVID slowed everything down, and maybe you've seen this before when you've received an order, and then it said so much of your retirement order. That means that's null and void. You are extended for another 2 years. And I was extended for another 2 years, and it was not because of anything I did, heroic intelligence or anything else. I was branched military intelligence, and that branch in the Army Reserves and some other branches to include civil affairs, I think, and some other stuff. I'm not sure on civil affairs, but I know several branches. None of them were combat arms. It was deemed they'd give them another 2 years, and they said it was to give them an opportunity to make O6. Lieutenant colonels make O6. In reality, they needed them, and so rather than just promote a bunch of majors, they're like, okay, well, we got these lieutenant colonels that are already here and trained, and so I'm like, okay, now I'm going to look for a battalion command. So I started looking for a battalion command. It was catch-22 because I didn't receive that information. I was being extended a month early or 2 weeks early, even a week early. And they were sticklers at the battalions. No, you have to have 2 years left. And I said, well, I'm contacting you like days after I got this. And they said, no, you have to have 2 years left. And, there was no skin off their nose. So I didn't get to. So then what did I do? I did what I always did. I started looking for a tour. And I had trouble initially because the system had to be reset. It said, sir, it's showing you retired in here. And I had to work around all of that and get somebody to go in. And I went on something called tour of duty, which you don't deal with that, but Army reservist and I think only Army reservist. I've never seen anything in there from another branch. Army reservist and National Guardsmen use it, and they can jump on tours. And it's kind of neat. It's kind of like a wish list. And if you get selected, you get interviewed. And I was like, yeah, go to the United States Embassy, Baghdad, Iraq, and was out there. I was initially going to be in charge of, they would have these, just you'd be handling cases for, the way it works out there, and it works like this at a lot of embassies. You have the Office of Security Cooperation, and it's kind of like you give your kids, I don't have kids, but you give your kids like, okay, here's $10. Now go buy the candy you want.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of the Iraqis, we give them money and then they buy stuff from us.
Right.
So and I'm not, I say we give them money. They have so much, because if we just gave them money, they'd probably never give it back, but they have so much to buy from. That's what, okay. So it's like you tell your kids, you can get $10 worth of candy, go pick out what you want. So I was supposed to be doing that. I wound up going over there and being the operations officer, and it was a very interesting. That's a position for combat arms, or pilot. I guess pilots are combat arms in the Air Force. You picture someone like that doing that. So it was challenging for me, an intelligence officer. And enjoyed my time over there. Was sent on an ordered departure because the previous year I wasn't there like 6 weeks, and I had to leave the embassy, and I went to Camp Arifjan, and I was out of place there because we had killed Soleimani and somebody else the previous year with a drone strike, and they were not happy about that.
Right.
And so there were a lot of drone strikes there while I was there. And interesting, I guess, a bit of trivia about that. My cousin's son is a lieutenant in the National Guard, and he returned from there, I guess maybe 7 months ago, and they didn't have one attack. So his experience was far different than mine. But he was in uniform the whole time. I was not. I was on a diplomatic mission run by the State Department, which means I had to get a visa. For the first time going somewhere in the military, I had to visa into the country, not allowed to carry a weapon, not allowed to participate in any military exercise, and wearing a suit or a nice polo shirt more often than a uniform. Occasionally could wear a uniform. I didn't bring a dress uniform. Just brought the combat uniform, and could wear it occasionally, would be chastised if I wore it too much. And so I retired once, and then I had to retire again. So I left there, and I almost got sanctuary there, but they
Hmm.
caught it, and I did out my time. The whole let's see, the whole tour, I think it was 400 days, which is unusual for reserves. Normally you'd be on 365-day orders or less, and I was sent back through Fort Hood, which is where you normally go, sometimes Fort Bliss, and then came off that, joined another unit down in San Antonio, finished my time there, retired again in 2022. But I'm that was in June. I'm not one to just like sit around and do nothing. So uh, I went and got a contracting job. Went over to Kuwait as a contractor, even though I was still uh, in the Army Reserves,
Hmm.
and even though I had that rank, I wasn't working at that rank. And I will tell you, my experience as a contractor. This is alluding to what you said before. It was just. I went from being a lieutenant colonel, having my own office, people saluting me, calling me sir, to hey Ken, come here, we need help with this.
Yep.
Working under a major over there, well, he's lieutenant commander over there in the Navy, and he was respectful. He knew I outranked him in the reserves, and he was a reservist. Uh, and then, while I was out there, I did my, when you do the disabilities thing and everything like that. And that tour came up, went back, helped my mother with my stepfather again, who had full blown dementia by that time. Was looking into another tour. Uh, I had been down to, I went down to Peru because my best friend was Peruvian, and she had stage 4 cancer. Came down to see her, spent some time down here. Had to go back for a lie detector test for when my top secret clearance. I was going to be working in Ayers Rock, was it Pine Gap in Australia, and that would have been one of those things where it's 12-hour shifts, 12 to midnight, 12 to midnight, and then midnight to 12, midnight to 12, and then a day off. And I'm like, okay, I'm over 50, and these buildings don't have windows in them. And I looked it up, and it was unbearably hot there. There were problems with the Maori, the local people, and so I was going to do it. And then I was in Peru 3 months. Came down in July, more than three, more than 3 months. Came down in July. Yeah, it was closer to December. And they're like, okay, I want you to come back, and I have to do a series of medical tests and everything else to see if I was eligible to go over as a contractor. And it could take up to a year to do that, during which time they weren't going to pay me.
Hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I'm down here doing what I like. You guys didn't keep me updated. I'm just going to I'm going to study. Originally, I was going to study Spanish for 2 years, uh, learn French, go over to France, get my doctorate, and write my novel. And I had one teacher down here that said, "Why do you want to learn French?" It was a female teacher, Isabel Ramos, and really, I guess it was more about just this whole trying to impress people thing, trying to be cultured, because I don't want to live in France. And there are some other countries that speak French, but it's not the language that Spanish is as far as known internationally. So
Right.
within 24 hours, I took that off my list. I had a teacher down here I still know him, he's a published author. And he said, is your novel, which he knows novel is fiction, he said, is that going to be about your doctorate? And he knew it. I think he knew it wasn't. And I said no. We were speaking in Spanish. I was taking classes down here in Spanish. And I condensed some of this because there were various times I came and I was going to travel somewhere. And because of COVID, I was blocked. And so I decided, well, I'll just study. I'm not going to just not do anything. And I started studying Spanish. And for the first time, I took private lessons and learned much quicker. And he said, well, then why don't you just start writing your novel now? This was like in December of 2023. Why don't you just start writing it now? So I would go to a coffee shop in the evening, have a ritual, drink coffee. I'd be smoking a cigar. I started writing that novel. I should have written down the times I worked on it, because I think I put in well over 1,000 hours working on it.
Hmm.
And when it's all said and done, if you're writing a novel to make money, I know there are people who make really good money at it, James Patterson, other things, but it's not the odds are against you.
Yeah, they also crank out 100 books, and I mean, it's incredible
I
how
have
much
spent a lot of money on this because I got paid, first you come up with the ideas, you write it, you get alpha readers to look at it, you send it to a developmental editor. They tell you things that need to be changed in the structure. Then you get beta readers. I was getting free beta readers, but then they would like read some of it and say, this isn't my kind of novel. I'm not going to finish. They wouldn't finish it. Went on Fiverr, got paid beta readers, and I got the ones not only who had a lot of clients, because people don't normally want to fire somebody or give them a bad review, including me. But I won't go back to somebody if they're not good. So I looked for ones that had return clients, and so you're paying. Let's see, one was like let's see, 650. Another one was like 250, but they were good. And they caught a lot of stuff, polished it a lot. The book started out being 73,000 words. The current novel is under 43,000 words. And well, that's a good thing. I remember writing my master's thesis. It started out 150 pages. I don't remember the word count. And what I submitted was 53 pages.
right.
And I was told, the better ones are the ones that you can just say.
Less is more. I remember being in college. I took a business class, and every paper that we wrote had to be 500 words or less. And I was like, man, this is. I thought it was stupid at the time, but I realized that there's a need for brevity. Like learning how to say what you want to say in the minimum amount of words it's kind of interesting to learn that skill.
It's a great skill to have, and I think that's one thing I can do is write. At one time, I was thinking about being an attorney, but it's not. I don't like the whole arguing thing, and I'm extremely honest. I'm not just honest; I'm forthright. If anything, I overshare. I tell people too much, and I'm learning not to do that.
Right.
Because I'm really. It was I was an officer, and I needed. I had a lot of commanders tell me you'll be fine as long as you have a strong NCO that doesn't let people take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Because you're a nice guy.
So what was it for you? What was the decision to stay in Peru, and then where does the writing come from? Is that just something you've always wanted to do, and you said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna move to Peru, and this is what I'm gonna focus on. I'm gonna organize my life in a way that I can support myself and focus on what brings me joy."
Okay. We talked about scuba diving before. When I returned from Iraq, did a scuba diving trip to the Bahamas, met a woman there from Peru. She was getting divorced at the time, surprised her by showing up in Peru, sent her an email that she didn't even see. Was here for a few weeks, stayed in Lima, and went to Paracas to see the seals. Was here for 2 weeks. That was in 2004. I'm talking about animal seals, not Navy seals.
Yeah.
Came back in 2000, stepped in touch with her, came back in 2009 before I went to Afghanistan. Was here about 2 weeks. Came back from Afghanistan and stayed with her for 90 days. We did wind up breaking up, but one of her best friends became my best friend, and we stayed in touch by Facebook. That's the woman, Cecilia, who got cancer, returned to Peru to get treatment at a more affordable cost because Bahamas is expensive. And so I came to see her. That was the second time. I had to go back for that lie detector test. And then the job fell through, but I had the lie detector test, so I could go for the job in Australia, returned again, was here for a little over a year with a student visa. And then I went back, and then I'm like, you know what? I looked into a retirement visa. While I was here, I looked into a retirement visa, and I'm like, I want to just stay there. I don't want to have to be in school. And it was many things. And quite a lot of people just say, oh, I love the call. Well, it's also financial. This is basically like living in Santa Barbara or something like that. And I'm living much more affordably than I do in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. And so when my mother got sick and passed away, you had to make some hard choices. I had a 2012 Ford Mustang and fell in love with the Mustangs ever since I saw the movie Bullitt, Steve McQueen.
Oh yeah.
And got I didn't like the 1980s or 1990s Mustangs. They looked like a Matchbox car. They didn't look like a muscle car to me. They didn't look like a sports car, but the ones that resembled the ones from Bullitt and stuff, those I really like. The ones now look a little bit different. But I had to sell that car because I'm like, what am I going to do? Put it in storage? And my mother's house, the value went up a lot, and you can keep the house. You had a, half acre of land, you could keep the house and you can keep it up, but, trying to do that from here. So I had to sell a lot of things. I'm also a gun guy. And I have a storage unit there, and I put one pistol in there, which was hers, and I'm going to go back and sell it. And then I have two at my cousin's gun safe in Melbourne, Florida. But I'm like, I'm going to live here in Peru because it's more affordable. The thing I don't like about it, if I was working here, I'd be very frustrated because it's kind of like you've heard about the island mentality. Well, that's what it is here. You in the grocery store, somebody knows somebody. They walk up, oh hi, how you been? They'll have a little conversation. I'm like, lady, I want to I want to pay for my groceries and go home. Why don't you just?
Yeah.
Do you really? Can't you do that on your break? I don't
Yeah.
say anything. I don't say anything. But I know it's but I mean, you're going to meet up with some girl. On a date, I've had a woman I knew, leave me waiting as much as 3 hours. And now that's an extreme. That's an extreme. But 20 minutes, that's normal. 20 minutes.
Yeah, things happen at their own pace down there. That's for
And
sure.
I'm the military guy. I'm showing up at least 10 minutes early.
Right, right. No, I hear you. I hear you.
And then sometimes they surprise me and show up early when I show up on time.
Right.
So I like that. I want to learn Spanish, and there is no substitute for immersion.
At all. I was, like I said, I was just in Peru in July. I spent a year trying to teach myself Spanish with Duolingo, paid for the app and all of that. I learned in 3 weeks, way more than I learned in a year on Duolingo, just
Where did you
interacting
study?
with people.
Where did you study? Did you study or just interact?
No, I just interacted,
Okay.
just walking around town for 3 weeks and just
Okay.
talking to people and trying to use what I had learned from Duolingo. I will say Duolingo helped me be able to navigate around the city of Tarapoto, being able to read what buildings are, what kind of the shop is, knowing this is a clothes shop, that's a supermarket, whatever. I will say, for me, the speaking part of it, it was really challenging because I was learning Spanish, so traditional Spanish. The dialect in Peru is completely different. Some very noticeable differences, like if we were trying to buy, cuánto is how much, and buying like a slice of pineapple on the street from the street vendor, he would say uso instead of uno. And so just like little nuanced stuff like that for how much things cost or whatever. And I felt like I learned more just interacting with people in 3 weeks than I did in an entire year of trying to teach myself on an app on my phone. You know what I mean?
Did you study at all in the United States as far as in high school or college for Spanish?
No, actually, that's the
Was it
funny
required?
thing. No, so I took German. I was a
Oh,
German guy.
okay.
So I did 2 years of German in high school and then 2 years of German in college. And I still remember quite a bit of it. I was always able to read it and speak it better or read it and write it better than I was speak it. However, I, for whatever reason, just kind of hung on to it.
Okay.
And so now I'm learning Spanish. It's important to me, like you. It's a challenge. It's hard to learn things when you're older. And I don't necessarily think I have a brain for language. So it's definitely a challenge for me, but I feel like it makes me better. It gives me something to focus on instead of turning on the fucking TV and, brain rotting myself to death. So
I tripped into it. In high school we could take German, French, and Spanish. I definitely wanted to go to university. People who wanted to go to university in the 80s took German or French. We had a teacher that exposed us to a little bit of all three. She was a native Spanish speaker and knew the other two languages. I believe her name was Herrera. And I was good about writing down my assignments in a book, but I didn't write this down, didn't prepare. And on the day of the exam, it was just an oral exam. And I said, I'm Miss Herrera, I'm sorry, I didn't remember to study for this. So for German and French, which is what the other people wanted, I didn't get that. And what I wanted, I got put in Spanish. Well, then it wasn't but like a year and a half later that I wound up moving down to Texas. And then it turned out to be the best thing for me.
yeah,
So I think a lot of things, I'm a Christian. I believe that I just tripped into some things. I believe that, it's not hard to walk through the right door when the other ones are all locked.
yep,
It's
that's
just,
it.
and I believe God has done that. I mean, He took, okay, so what happened working in intelligence, have a top secret clearance. The Army maintains that while you're in the reserves, but then you retire. These contractors will stress like going from one contracting job to another because they want to hold on to their clearance.
Right.
And it doesn't just get held automatically. There's a period of elapse, there's a period of grace, but it's not indefinite. No, now I no longer have it, and I'd have to find an agency organization willing to pay for it. And not that I got in trouble or anything; it would come back, but it would just cost money. And so, uh, I, you know, learning Spanish down here, I think it's great. I don't like. I started out liking, enjoying it, but now getting deep into the grammar and studying for something called DELI. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's a proficiency in Spanish. And in high school and college, I also studied the Spain Spanish, and they had the Vosotros, which the form is not used down here. And I want to get the DELI certificate because I may have at some point I may want to go back and work for something with government. But even if I don't work for government, I'd like to have that on my resume that I have a certain aptitude in Spanish. I'm one
Yeah.
of these people that I have to have like goals, check marks. I did a
Of
marathon.
course.
I ran one marathon when I was 25, and then I'm like, okay,
Check
because
that
I don't
off the
believe,
list. Right.
I hear what people are saying, but I don't believe them. Now I have an injured back. I don't run now, but back when I was running, I did not believe that you could run 26. Was it 26.2?
26.2. Yeah.
26.2 miles. And I'm like, no, this can't be good for me. I don't believe the people that say it doesn't hurt them. It hurts them. They just don't know it. You know, people saying smoke a cigarette, well, it doesn't hurt me. Well, you just don't realize it, but eventually it will. And so I was originally had a plan. I was going to return, go to Texas A&M University, get my doctorate. But looking at the stuff, you know, my age versus the people that are doing it, my severe issues with concentration, which I've had my whole life. At one point, they had told my grandmother I was mildly retarded, and I was in the second grade. I would never learn how to read. And it made her so angry that not only did I go to summer school, but she bought a bunch of little books and she taught me to read. And it's like I said, it's not hard to go through the right door when the others are locked. When your grandmother is sitting right next to you and she's forcing you to try to read, that's not hard.
Right.
I mean, I didn't have a choice. I had one-on-one, like now with Spanish, and I'm enjoying it. I want to get my doctorate online now. I'm sure you've heard of this. I got my master's through American Military University,
Yep.
and I want to get my doctorate through them because they are regionally accredited. The online universities, they still do have like they're thinking, well, that's not a real university. Well, American Military University is a real university. I know many people, not just some, many people who went to traditional brick and mortar schools that said they were easier than American Military University. And for somebody like me with problems with concentration, everything that's going to be, you know, that I need to know has to be contained in some format that I can look at it. So if I'm not paying attention to a lecture or something, I can go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, Ken, as we're coming to the end of our time here, man, tell everybody about your book. When's your book coming out? What inspired
okay.
you to write some crime novels
I didn't
here?
answer your question. I didn't answer your question about that. I'm sorry. Okay, so I was. We talked about me being oversharing, over trusting, and I had a friend who, at one point, I worked for, and he's the most manipulative person I ever met. And I don't know that he's evil, because to be evil, you have to have awareness. But he's one of these people that's just, you know, he just doesn't take any responsibility for his own actions, and it hurt me so much that I couldn't not write it. So the good, and this is the part where I'm like, this is a novel. Loosely based means loosely based. The good person in the book is loosely based on me. He's a computer expert, which I'm not, but he is someone who's unathletic, has the same birth date as me, and was in all the places I was at, is the exact same age as me. And the bad person in the book is based on this person. And he robs a bank in Dallas, Texas, a white collar crime by transferring money, stealing a cryptocurrency key, fakes his own death. That's a familiar story. And then he goes down to Huancayo, Peru, which you will not have heard of because that's a touristy destination for Peruvians. I was there for 4 days and didn't see one other gringo, no black people, just Peruvians, nobody from other countries, just me, and I got stared at a lot. So it's a good place for him to hide out. Some people said, why didn't he go to the selva, the jungle? Well, there's some serious bad people in the jungle, narco traffickers, who would want to steal the money he stole. And so the book is called Trapped in Deception. And I made sure it's not an AI product. I was going to use a cover and a back cover. People liked more the AI version than what I paid somebody on Fiverr to do. Doing the research, putting it on Amazon, I have to claim the book was made with AI just for that. So
Right.
I'm like, no, I want to get as far away from AI as I can. The one thing I did use AI for was the list of characters. As quickly as I could, I typed in, this person is this tall, mustache, smokes, doesn't smoke, brown eyes, blue eyes, and just made a list. That's just AI assisted. I don't have to claim that's AI because that's just definitions.
Right.
And I put footnotes in there. It's a glossary. Some people don't agree with that for a novel, but when will it be out? It's with a formatter right now. Tomorrow, this is a Thursday. Tomorrow on Friday, 1700, 5 o'clock, we have our first meeting to look at the formatting. But the book is done. It's just getting formatted now. My intent is to put it on Amazon once I may have some trouble getting on. I've heard some people saying that, but it shouldn't be more than a few days, to get it in there. And this being October the 9th, and she promised that she'd have it done by October 25th. It's going to be on there sometime between early November and the 1st of December. And
Cool.
I took the trouble. I paid for my own ISBNs, and you have to have separate ones. And that's because I don't want anybody else controlling anything on the novel. And I have it for a soft cover, a hard cover, an ebook, and an audiobook. And I'm not using Amazon's on any of them. I recorded the audiobook. I did it with my own voice. You sometimes have the option of AI, but to me it means something. And my favorite author is John le Carre. He wrote Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. He wrote a book that became a famous novel, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, with Richard Burton. And he would narrate often his own books. And that meant he was a real spy, by the way. And that means something to me. If you didn't know, John le Carre was a real spy at one point. Never in the military that I know of, but he was a spy. And so just like Ian Fleming did naval intelligence, so he knew, the James Bond writer. And he wrote, a lot of his stuff is related to experiences he had. He was exposed as a spy, and there's the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is about someone who got high up in British intelligence. Have you seen the movie?
I have, yeah.
It's based on that bad guy is based on a real guy named Kim Philby.
No, I didn't know that.
Philby, who was responsible and he was a real guy who was an aristocrat. And it's, there's quite a bit of truth in that. I mean, it's loosely based. I don't think that whole story happened like that. There is no Smiley that I know of, but the bad guy existed, and he wound up fleeing to Russia, which is he died in Russia teaching other people how to be spies. So it's Trapped in Deception. It'll be out between November and December. I've paid for my own webpage, Ken Webb with two B's, KenWebb 69. The 69 is because that's the year I was born. KenWebb69.com. It's going to be on Amazon. I'm going to have it printed locally in Peru. There is no Amazon Peru. People would have to pay to ship from the U.S. It's cheaper for them, and I can make more money by printing local copies. I'm going to be selling it at my church's Christmas fair market, and I'm going to be going to bookstores trying to sell it. And I'm a member of a writers group here in Peru. If they want a copy, they can buy a copy from me. I'm going to give all my teachers a complimentary copy. I'm going to give them to the libraries here. I'll be giving them to the libraries in the U.S., and I just ask for reviews. So it'll be on KenWebb69.com, Trapped in Deception.
Well, Ken, I really appreciate you spending the hour with me telling your story to our community. Let it live here so that others know that they're not alone in what they go through when they experience the transition out of the military. I think you're a perfect example of building a life that suits you on the other side of the military and not falling into society's box that they say you're supposed to play in. Go get the corporate 9-to-5, do this, do that. I'm really excited for your book, man. I will make sure that once it comes out, out, I throw a little post up on LinkedIn letting people know to go buy it so that you can make a little money. And what are the plans? You going to write more or what?
I'm already having plans for another novel, and I want to write about reinvention.
I love it.
Maybe reinvention in Peru, but I didn't understand. I was so depressed. And this is again God. I had a mandatory retirement date, or mandatory. Maybe it doesn't say. Maybe that's not retirement, but it's something. The MRD, it wasn't based on my age, because I could have stayed until I was 60, but the amount of years as a lieutenant colonel, because I didn't, promote higher. I think you have to. I don't think colonel's good enough either. I think you might get 30 years out of colonel, but I got 30. I think I'd have to get major general to get more. And I was depressed, but it was the best thing in the world for me, because I love the Army, but I don't love being in the Army, because I'm a person who allows the stress to get to me.
Yeah.
I care so much about I'm OCD about, not about being neat, but about other things. And I don't like some of these nuances of double speak in the military, when the people, to me, is just lying.
Yeah.
And I've seen people, and higher rank does not indicate higher morality.
No, it does not.
I used to think that, but I have seen 06s just look me right in the face and lie to me.
Yeah.
From the Navy and the Army, and not seem to feel any guilt about it.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm with you. But, well, Ken, thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ken Webb. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, download this. Please leave a comment. Let me know your feedback on these episodes. And don't forget to buy Ken's book when it comes out. Support our brother here in arms, and help him, just earn a living off living his life his way. Until next week, we'll see you guys with another awesome episode. Take care, everybody. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.